Okay, good evening, brothers and sisters, or good day, or clearly it's night here. I hate to break it to you, you have clicked on the wrong video. This is, if you're looking for the quickest run through of Hosea, I think my title has just misled you. I'm going to be upfront and honest. I believe in honesty. I have 93 slides right now that I'm about to go through step by step, describing Hosea, the book, its historical context, and what it means for us. I wish it were not 93 slides, 94 slides, but it is just that entertaining that I could not stop myself. So I apologize to my parents who have to watch this, who have to go through all 93 slides. I apologize to the audience who's just as intrigued and enslaved by this idea of how cool Hosea is. That's also going to have to watch this video because it's just that interesting. It's gonna be a long journey together, but I want you to trust that it's going to be a great experience. I don't have any music. I don't have any big slides. It is just simply about how awesome this text is. We're just gonna dive into it in just the best way possible. So it's really important right off the bat. If you do not have water near you right now, you're gonna have to go get water. If we don't have water together, one of us is gonna die of thirst before we're done with this video. If you don't have a journal with you, get a journal, get a notes page out, because you're just going to need to document everything. I just can't explain how excited I am. This book just makes me so excited in every single way. And I love this. I will make a promise to you off the bat that when you read the book of Hosea, and when you dive deeper into it, you are going to learn more about Jesus Christ in a wonderful way. And it is just thrilling to me that I have the privilege of walking you through this. So, if you're really going for it, there's a few other videos I'm gonna send you out to watch. Watch the Bible Project videos. They're awesome. Those, if you are here and you just want a summary, watch the 9 minutes of the Bible Project videos, and that will do it for you. Okay. The other one, there's two other videos that you should go watch. There's one by another gentleman who's a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it's called the Unshaken video series on it, Unshaken. And he does a wonderful overview. I watched that entire thing. It's longer too, but it is worth it. He goes through, and he has great takes. He's much older than I am. He has lots of great life experience, and just can throw it all out there. The other video, I can't remember his name, but there's this wonderful pastor online who went through and talked about Hosea in a very real and applicable way. So let's talk about what this is too. So my name is Sam Heisey. I'm a BYU student right now. I'm in the Ancient Near Eastern Studies program, with the emphasis on the Hebrew Bible. If you can't tell I love the Bible, I'll tell you now I love the Bible. I love the Old Testament. And it's just the best thing ever. And so this is my freshman year, I've just gotten to dive straight into it. And so this is particularly for my religion course, my Old Testament course that I'm taking with the John Hilton III. And so if you don't know John Hilton III, you're going to have to watch this video and then go and watch John Hilton's stuff. I consider it a privilege to be in the classroom with him every single day. Only 2 days a week, unfortunately. But spiritually, in the idea, I'm there with him every single day of the week. So watch him though, watch him. We're going to talk more about his insights. I stole a little bit of stuff from his website. But he's awesome, and everything I've learned here now, I just got to attribute it so much to John Hilton. So this is just the brief introduction I'm going to give. I'm going to give more, don't worry. The life secrets of Sam Heisey will be revealed in time. So this is called a study of the book of Hosea. I hope on all these slides you can see exactly what I'm seeing. Sometimes my video up in the corner might sort of hide things, but I'm going to try and just work around it. So Hosea is great, right? But I thought maybe I'd just spice it up a little bit by calling it Marijuana Legalization and Adultery. I believe in exciting titles. This is my hook to get you in, and I hope that'll do it. So getting right in, this is just a footnote I wanted to add in the beginning. The book of Hosea, that we're going to talk so much about it. Hosea, he lived at a very different time than we do now. This is a quote I'd like to read from you from Hosea. It says, "There was no knowledge of God in the land." And so this represents very cumulatively how the people didn't know God. And I've attached a photo of our new first presidency that was announced today at 1 o'clock my time. Because his time is just so different from what we have. And so particularly because this is just such a historic moment, but also because of my faith and love for these three gentlemen who will be directing our church. I'd just like to bear my testimony that we don't have this reality in our day right now. There is knowledge of God in the land, and I think we just have to juxtapose that people today in the restoration and the fullness of times are much more receptive to the gospel than the people of Hosea's time were. So that's sort of like a side note here. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As such, of course, this is naturally not the media of the church, so don't take anything I say with literalness. If you're investigating the church or if you don't know anything about our church, go find some more details on that. But I do represent the general faith background of members of the church, so I will be using a few different things. Other things for fellow members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm going to be using a lot my sturdy King James Bible. This is my quad here. But also, I just want to throw it out there just so I don't, scandalize anyone in the middle of my lesson. I'm also going to be using a lot of my new international version, my study Bible. This is one my mother got for me, because John Hilton recommended it. And when John Hilton says jump, you say, Brother Hilton, how high? It's not really that militaristic in the classroom. But I trust him with full gusto. And I would say if you are curious about different translations of the Bible, go for it, because this new international version is going to make a lot of things in the book of Hosea a lot clearer. If you don't have access to that, don't worry. You don't need a study Bible. You don't need to throw that out. It's super useful to get one. They have lots of footnotes, lots of articles, specifically, well, I don't even know what you could call this. If you just want to take a real close look at this one, buy the one that looks just like this one online. And it's perfect in every single way. As perfect as the Bible can get, which is pretty dang close. And so it's a wonderful translation, and of course it does not represent the original text because it has been altered over time. But different translations sort of get at different things, and I really appreciate what the New International Version can do for us. And so I will be using it a lot. Don't worry. I have a professor, Matthew Gray, who can give you a list of every time a general authority in the church has used a different translation of the Bible when quoting in conference. So, you reach out to me, you can reach out to him, you can find some way to contact me. Find my mom on Facebook, Lisa Heisey, and contact her, and that should do the trick, I suppose. Okay, so on to actual Hosea. Let's break it down in sort of the context of things. What do we know about Hosea? Okay, he's a prophet in Israel. Okay, just like a lot of these guys are. He's pretty far into the book. He begins a section of the Bible that we refer to as the minor prophets. And I want to make the same disclaimer as everyone else on YouTube is going to make. They're not minor because they're worse. They're just minor because these books are smaller. You'd be surprised I could pull out 93 slides out of just these few chapters, but they're so dense. They're just so awesome. They show that they know how to be concise in a wonderful way. Okay, so he's one of the minor prophets. He begins this book, one of the 12 minor prophets. They might refer to it as the books of the 12 too. It depends on who you're asking. Maybe you're asking a member of the Jewish faith, and I'm not Jewish, so I can't tell you exactly what the tradition of referring to the Bible will tell you. But all sorts of different names. But he begins this section. He's the only, what they call one of the written prophets to come out of Israel in the northern kingdom. A lot of these prophets who are writing themselves, that's what the term written prophet means, a prophet who wrote themselves, as compared to being mentioned in a text. Don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure. Like, for example, the prophet Elisha, not Elijah, Elisha, is only referred to. There's no book of Elisha. They quote him, there's excerpts, but did he write his books himself? No, he did not. And if I made a mistake, please just bear patience with me. I'm a college student. You can sue what I have, but that is not very much as of right now with student bills and whatnot. So he's a prophet from the northern kingdom. If we take just a real close look, I apologize for how little I made this timeline. But we just have this stretch, so you can look through it. I even got to scoot my computer in closer. It's smaller on my screen than what you all are seeing. So if you know anything about biblical history, it comes after King David. That's about as general as you can say. He comes after his son Solomon, and then Solomon's son Rehoboam. He splits Israel, and we can remember this. There's all of this is written about in the histories, and so you can find that all in those respective things. I'm gonna be honest, use ChatGPT. I used ChatGPT for a lot of these photos here that you're gonna see, but I'll tell you if something's real. If it's a real photo, I'll tell you. Otherwise, assume some kind of AI made it, and I try to be pretty good about labeling them. But AI really impressed me with its capabilities in what kind of photos it can produce. So it comes after Rehoboam, and so the kingdom of Israel is split, and so I just sort of tried to track the political progress of who's in charge. So I have King Jehu. He's mentioned in 2 Kings. You might be familiar with him. We're going to talk a lot more about him. He's after King Uzziah of the southern Judah, the southern kingdom, and he marks himself. This is the quote from 1 Hosea. This is the first verse of the first book. It says, "The word of the Lord that came unto Hosea, the son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel." So he uses both the political figures from the southern and northern kingdom to just sort of help us track where he truly is in time. So like I said, he's right around like Hosea said, he's right around the time of Uzziah and Jeroboam, and Hezekiah is in there too. If you pay attention, between the split of Israel and between when Hosea starts, we get about 145 years. This is not a new concept. They've been separate for a long time. Now, if you look on the bottom part of this little timeline I have, you recognize that red bar, right? It's Isaiah. So Hosea and Isaiah were contemporaries. They I can't say they were best pals or they knew each other, but they were alive at the same time and working just in different kingdoms. So Isaiah specializes mostly in the southern kingdom of Judah, and my boy Hosea is all the way at the top, and he's working through all of this rebellious state of Israelites. And if you can recall the history, northern Israel falls much sooner than southern Judah does. There's a discrepancy, mostly because of King Hezekiah and his righteous decisions in the southern kingdom. So Hosea is just desperately trying to pull the stopping brakes, and he's saying things are going badly. Your politics, they're bad. Things are not going well, and he's trying to pull the brakes. But the fall of the northern kingdom happens anyway when Assyria comes in and ends up taking over. We'll look at a map in just a second here. So between King Hezekiah, which happens, in the midst of Hosea's ministry, there's about 100 years. So there's a significant amount of time left, not massive, but significant before the southern kingdom will fall and be gone into the famous exile in Babylon. And so that's really what you need to know. I just want you to keep this in your mind. Save this timestamp, whatever it is. It's going to be different than what shows on my screen right now after editing. But save this timestamp and come back to look at this map if you just need to be situated. Understanding where we are geographically, in this case it won't be super important, but understanding where we are geographically and where we are in a timeline space is going to be very important. When we talk about what Hosea is teaching about, it's everything in the Bible happens in context. Nothing happens in a vacuum, as my ancient Near Eastern studies teacher says. Everything always has context and always has effect. Okay, so what is the structure of Hosea then? What do these books look like? What are they doing? Okay, so in the first, we have this first verse I already read to you. Okay, it's the introduction to Hosea. Who is Hosea? What is he doing? Okay. Right after that, for the rest of chapter 1, all the way through the end of chapter 3, we talk about Israel, and he makes a comparison to his own marriage and his own life. It's very literal, and it's very hard for him. After chapter 3, we get into chapter 4, and really sort of chapter 4 through 14, when the book ends, It's all sort of this conglomerate, like glob of teachings. It's very easy to separate 1 through 3 through the rest of the book, but between how you separate the rest of the book, that gets trickier. So I separated this based off my favorite parts. I love chapter 11. Okay, I love 1 through 3. I love 1 through 3. We're going to talk about my love and passion for that. But between this rest of the glob, I love 11 most. Okay, so that's how I spaced it. The Bible videos project, the Bible project videos, they sourced it in 2 different sort of strains of Hosea warning Israel about what is going to happen. Oh, and maybe I forgot. Yeah, I should mention Hosea will often talk about Israel. He'll use the term Ephraim, which is of course one of the larger tribes in Israel. But anytime he says Ephraim, he's talking about the same thing. He usually refers to Judah as Judah, or cities within that. But Ephraim and Israel are the same. I should say that before I forget, because otherwise it gets, I see talking about Ephraim so much. So there's different ways to source it. And then one thing that some people sort of acknowledge, some people don't talk about it. I liked it because it was in the Bible Project videos. They talked about just this little end cap that's going to end our lesson today here too. And it's just summarizing things. It's one verse, and it says, "What are you going to do with this? What does this mean?" Okay, so let's look at a map. My biggest accomplishment of the academic school year so far has been that I had to memorize Bible map. I think this is number 9 or something. I had to memorize this, and we had to draw it. And so it's wonderful. But so here's a map we have up north. Well, first let's look at that line. I put a line in there to demonstrate just about where that cut is. And then a huge piece of influence is going to be this stretch of land in the north. It's called Mesopotamia, and it's wonderfully fertile. It has lots of land, lots of lushness, and so this is where a lot of different kingdoms will reside. Primarily what we're going to focus on today is a kingdom referred to as the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which takes place after the Assyrian Empire, and it's sort of this reorganization, and they're very successful. They end up coming in. I'll show these. I forgot about the arrow animation. They end up coming down and they occupy this stretch of Israel, but it doesn't stop there. They actually keep going, and eventually, if you look at maps, look up Neo-Assyrian Empire rule, they end up occupying this entire big stretch of land all the way down to Egypt. They come into Egypt and they take over, and that's impressive because Egypt has, I don't know, pharaohs and crazy gods, and maybe they'll cut you up and turn you into a mummy. So props on the Neo-Assyrian Empire for taking over and having the guts to do what it takes. But they also took over Israel, so maybe they lose any points they have. But so this is something we're going to be talking a lot about today. If you look at it, here's another little map here. I have 3 circles. Okay, one's not on Israel, but these are like, if you can put a circle around Israel and where Israel is. Of course, I should mention this too. When I say Israel, I simply refer to the biblical Israel in what we refer to there. I don't want to start any fights or talk about anything. More generically, we refer to this as the Levant. But today I will be using the term Israel. So in this land, there's 4 really big kingdoms. And so Israel has sort of showed up late. The Canaanites even came there before them, and Israel kicks out a bunch of groups, including the Canaanites. The Canaanites are one of the more significant of them. There's also the Philistines, which are talked a lot about. But if you really look at it, Israel is positioned directly in between 2 large kingdoms. Okay, on the south, we have, or maybe I got to swap it for you here. I'm trying to think about which way this video is going to look. Okay, we have Egypt down here, and we have Assyria up here. This is at the time of Hosea. Then we have these 2 lines that I drew, these little squiggly lines. They're not exact, but they represent 2 very major trade highways that are located in this area. This blue one that goes along the coast that is called the Via Maria. It means the way of the ocean, the way of the sea. And it follows these plains all the way around and then sort of has to jog across these mountains. The other one is called the King's Highway. And funny enough, in Numbers, they often talk about the King's Highway when Moses is talking to the 4 nations. I just read this, so I should be able to remember it, recall it. He says, "Let us pass through the King's Highway." So it's very significant. And if you look, where's Jerusalem? Okay, it's positioned right in between the center. So there's two just these massive nations, and Israel's caught right in between the center of it. And I want to sort of present this one idea out front, and I'm going to expand on it later. But really, well, two ideas. First, trade and trade pathways that surround a nation. That means new ideas are flowing in and out all the time. The one we're going to be talking about today is idolatry, that is very prominent in Hosea. So it's not just like Israel had to just resist idolatry or just not do it generically. These ideas were actively coming through the land. And even the Canaanites, which occupied part of the Israel promised land, they're practicing idolatry too. That's their faith custom. And there's sort of all these faith traditions. You can look into it, or take a class if you're a BYU student. Take a class about this. It's really interesting. There's sort of a practice of, I can't think of the word, of just practicing multiple deities, having multiple deities, not being specific to any god. That's kosher, as they say, I suppose. That's kosher in this kind of cultural setting. And so these ideas are being passed all along. The second idea is that really, if you look at it, Israel's in an awful spot. It's just awful. It could not be worse. There's really you can't survive off to the right. That's all desert. To the left, of course, is the ocean. So they have access to the ocean, but then they're caught between two massive superpowers of production. They have rivers that are plentiful and encourage growth and production. Israel has the Dead Sea, which, the Sea of Galilee too, but the Dead Sea is bigger and it's deader too, so, you make your own assumptions, but, it just shouldn't work out. It is a miracle that they're established there in this land, and are preserved by they're preserved by God from two different nations. And this is seen again and again. So I just want to get this idea in your head. Israel is not meant to be a militaristic nation. It just doesn't work out. So I'd like to just expand on this idea of cultural ideas being traded. And we're going to do this fun. We're going back to our title when I talked about marijuana legalization. So I've gone through, this is what I do on a Saturday night when I'm having fun. The Cougars are playing a great game. Of course, I play with the marching band. I can't hide that fact here. I'm a very proud member of the Cougar marching band. But I get home, and instead of, doing whatever the kids are doing nowadays, I look up marijuana legalization maps in preparation for a Bible presentation. So it took a lot of time. I hope you enjoyed my map. I've categorically gone through and mapped the progression of marijuana legalization recreationally across the U.S. And so I just want to go through. So we start with two states. Everyone I show this to says, oh, Colorado, of course, Colorado. I have some friends from Colorado, so we can't diss Colorado quite so heavily. But yes, it does start in Colorado. So Colorado and Washington. Next, okay, just adjacent to Washington, we have Oregon, okay? And then Alaska. I can't really make a point with Alaska. Alaska's sort of a wild card. Okay, next, do you see what happens in this transition? On our west coast here, it continues spreading down, okay? And then we get these new, like the recreational usage idea in Maine, and they go, and then, Massachusetts comes after. Okay, let's go next. Then it sort of starts bridging across this way, across the northern half of the United States, okay? From Michigan to Illinois. Okay, and then you see this. This is a big one between, 2018, 2019 to 2020 and 2021, okay? So here in California, we branch down, and it spreads into Arizona and New Mexico. Okay, on the East Coast, it spreads to New York and Virginia, okay? So you can sort of see, this is the final map here. This is a big one. That's a big year for the marijuana dealers. It's almost all adjacent states, isn't it? Except for when Maine starts. These ideas are being passed along, and, the laws change, and, so I just feel like this is sort of proving the same point, that ideas trade. And so, I suppose connecting idolatry to marijuana is not my day job. But I just want to talk about how it's not just about not doing something, it's about avoiding it intentionally. That's, these other states, they had legislators who intentionally did not want to do it, but the ones who were open Eventually, it just happens because this is what your economy turns into, and then they realize, oh, we can make something out of this. So it's just a progression. So in the same way that trade routes, the same thing happens today. This is not foreign to us. Still happens today. Okay, just take it in and I don't know, breathe now as you're looking at the states with legalized marijuana. The next thing I want to look at, this is going to be a familiar concept for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is what we call the pride cycle. This is going to be very important, and I can't just get too much into it because I can't spoil, and we're already at 30 minutes. So this is, you can just read this. It starts with pride and wickedness, goes to destruction. I mean, look it up. It's whatever. Ask ChatGPT. Okay, so we're going to get right into chapter 1, and I just want to move fast just so we can get through some things. Turn me on 2 times speed. Just let it happen. Go on a run. I don't, do whatever you want. Sleep while I talk to you about Hosea. As long as I can get in someone's ears, I call that a success. Okay, so this is the idea that is introduced to Hosea. It says the beginning of the word, the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, go, take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. Okay, what does this mean? This means Hosea is commanded to find a prostitute and marry her. It's the craziest thing. If we thought it's crazy today, they thought it was even more crazy in Israel, right? What's happening? And so this idea, I love this connection, okay? Because we're going to zip over to Isaiah 54 real quick. Well, one thing quick. It's sort of obvious, but God is connecting this idea of idolatry and betrayal to how Israel has betrayed him. He's just going to expand on that in a very heart-wrenching way. Okay, but Isaiah 54, okay, this concept of comparing Israel to a wife and God to a husband, Isaiah is doing the exact same thing around that time in the southern part of the kingdom, or in the southern kingdom, I should say. In Judah, he's doing the exact same thing. And really, if you look at it, Israel is compared to almost any part of the familial body. There's children. Isaiah uses children as a comparison, a babe lying in the wilderness, and all sorts of things as a father. As we'll talk about that when we get to chapter 11. But I'd like to talk about this. What does it mean when they compare God to a husband? Let's break it down. Okay. Oftentimes, I think in culture, and specifically traditional domestic society, a husband is a protector. He earns the money. He's a breadwinner. In a very similar regard, I think this is exactly what Isaiah and Hosea are trying to say. They are saying God is taking care of you. He's the one doing all the work, and I don't want to diminish the housework of any wife. That is just as equally important, and it takes its right. But I don't think they really realized that in Israeli culture at the time, in the biblical culture. And so, whether there was some misogyny at play, and they said, well, of course God is the husband. He's the presiding body, right? There's again, my study Bible, love it so much. It has archaeological evidence inside, not like new stuff. It has photos of sort of evidence that contributes to this idea that maybe in this culture the wife takes lesser party. But I think it's more applicable in our times to think of maybe someone who, just sort of is an equal contributor, is part of the life, is an equal contributor to the relationship. It is not that he's doing less, it's just that he's a small portion. No, he is half the portion. And in a marriage, that should be an important part of your life, and in the same regard, God should be. And so that is what they're saying. That's how we can apply it. We can also sort of take these cultural bits and say, well, maybe they're also saying that he's a protector and a breadwinner, and he's doing all these things, and he's taking care of you. Don't forget that, okay? So here's what God commands Hosea next. And so it says, so he went and he took Gomer, a daughter of Diblam, which conceived and bare him a son. And the Lord said unto him, call his name Jezreel, for yet a while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel on the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. And it shall come to pass that at that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. Okay, what the heck did I just read? Right, this is sort of, let's break it down. We're going to talk about the names, all these names that happen, or that Hosea chooses to call his children, are all symbolic. Okay, if I were Gomer, first of all, I'd be offended. But this is his wife. So remember Gomer. There's Hosea and Gomer. And Gomer's just the one he chose, whether she was already a prostitute or whether she ends up, we don't know. It's not really too important. Just for like abstractness, the house of Jehu sort of refers to the presiding governmental body at the time. So he is going to avenge the blood of Jezreel. Okay, I can't spoil it. We're going to talk about these names. Okay, and so this is about Gomer again. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, Call her name Lo Ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now when she had weaned Lo Ruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, Call his name Lo Ami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God. Okay, so God is angry. He's angry. He's, this statement, you are not my people, and I will not be your God. Shots fired, as we say. So verse 7, I feel like this is sort of a tag. I imagine there's a little bit of rivalry between the two kingdoms. They separated for political reasons, so maybe there's still sort of some things. And he's saying, well, you guys think you're all that great? Judah's doing better than you are, right? They're going to get like 80 more years before they're sent off to Babylon, okay? So he's really coming down on them hard. Okay, let's talk about the names. This is key. Okay, I'm getting so behind here. Okay, Hosea, his name means salvation. It comes from the Hebrew verb yasha, which means to save. Okay, Hosea, it's the same name as Hosea, which is it's just a difference of how we've translated it. That means salvation too. There's also Jesus, which people think was probably pronounced different in those days, and that comes from like the Hebrew verb Yeshua, and also sort of Yasha, which is salvation again. So Hosea is a symbol of God, and as we believe in the church, Christ is the God of the Old Testament. And so we can get all day into defining the Godhead. But he's a symbol for Jesus Christ. Get that in your minds, okay? Let's go next. Jezreel is the name of his first kid, okay? El always refers to God. If you see that in the name, it means God does something. Very common, okay? The second part of the name is Zara, to sow, which in interpretation is scattering seed. He says, name your child Jezreel because I'm going to scatter them. It's very similar to, I can't remember if it's Ezekiel or Isaiah, because they both do weird things. I think it's Isaiah that starts naming his kids weird things. Don't think that, Elon Musk is the first guy to start naming his kids wacky things and getting public reaction out of it. This happened way before, okay? Lo Ami is the name of his first daughter, I think. And so Lo is the Hebrew word for no. It's the same no used in the commandments that when they say no murder and no adultery. And, Lo Ami. Okay, Am is people and me is my, so he's saying no my people, right? Like they're not anymore my people, okay? He's forsaking them. He's ready to move on because they're not doing what he wants them to. Lo Ruhamah, same thing. Lo, okay, same used in the commandments, right? Ruhamah is mercy. It's to be beloved. He's saying you are not loved. You have no mercy. Again, strong things, okay? Just to go back to Jezreel, okay? Jezreel is also a place, so maybe he's referencing to the place Jezreel. It's right by the valley of Jezreel. I put it on the green dot on both of these maps. So maybe something has happened at Jezreel, and it's, he's saying the things you have done to my land, this body of Israel. He's saying, I'm going to avenge the sins you placed upon this. And that is the blood of Jezreel, perhaps. And so he refers to a few different cities that we don't exactly quite know what he means when he's referring to them. That's maybe something that was readily available for the people before, but it's sort of lost on us a little bit now, so we can guess. And then, of course, the house of Jehu represents the government. Okay, let's keep going. It says, Yet the number of children of Israel shall be as the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head. And they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Say ye unto your brethren Ami, and to your sisters Ruhamah. Again, say unto your brethren my people, and to say unto your sisters beloved. Okay, he's coming back. This is a common pattern in Hosea. He'll do something and they'll say, never mind, I love you. And he'll say, forget about it. Okay, verse 10 is a reference right to the Abrahamic covenant. I have this in my slides. Sometimes I forget. I'm so ahead of the game. I make it easy for myself. Okay, Genesis 13:6, and I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, just like the sands of the sea, something incountable. And so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be outnumbered. And so he says even right here, which cannot be measured nor numbered. He's even locking down more than he does in Genesis 13:6 when he says, well, maybe they can number it. He says, no, they can't number it. Okay, Genesis 15:5, look now towards the heaven and tell the stars, if thou shalt be able to number them. He's again sort of half it, but this is still a great blessing, nevertheless, even if, maybe you're running into some really good mathematicians, okay? And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. So he's telling Abraham, he's saying, this is just the covenant, it's being renewed. And what is it saying? He's saying, I'm still keeping my promise. He said, it doesn't matter, I don't care what's happening. He says, I'm still keeping my promise. And even if you're going to be rebellious, come back. Let's make this work. Okay. So he says, oh, here this is. I remember. So in verse 7, he talks about having mercy on the house of Judah. Now, there's a really interesting historical addition to this, and I have to grace over. Read my slides, please. Reach out through my mother on Facebook through this convoluted, trap, and get my slides. I'll give them to you, please. Because there's just so much good information on here that I've collected over the past 2 weeks. So in 2 Kings, they talk about this this time where this is in Hezekiah's time, and he's trying to preserve his city because he knows the Assyrians are coming in. They've ransacked all these other places. And so it says in verse 35 in 2 Kings 19, you can switch to it. It has sort of this weird thing. It says, well, they were going to do something, but then the Assyrians woke up and they're dead. They found out they were dead bodies. Don't you hate it when that happens, right? So here, this is one of the real photos. I don't think I've ran any ChatGPT photos. This is a real photo from a palace relief in Nineveh, and we got to talk about it in my ancient Near Eastern Studies class. It's so cool. Look up the Lachish reliefs, and it's really neat, and so it sort of describes this thing. So here's where this really comes into play historically. This can also be traced back to a historical record called the Taylor Prism, and this is from Sennacherib, who is the king of Assyria at the time when Judah is sort of trying to be taken over, when they're coming down after the northern kingdom has fallen. And it backs this up, and it says they don't argue. They say, yes, we did not take the southern kingdom. And so the Taylor Prism tells it a little bit differently. It says we shut them in their cage, and they couldn't come out even if they wanted to. But I suppose we just decided to be nice and not take them out. So there's sort of like a little bit of propaganda here at play, and I'm sure neither story is 100% what happened, right? Waking up and finding that you're a dead body is not really that, but also not taking a city because you just don't feel like it that morning, even though you've taken a million other of these Judah cities, right? That doesn't make sense. So here's a photo of the Taylor Prism. Look at it, look it up, research it, study it. It's cool. Okay, but it was saved, and so if we just look at it, it says in here, the Lord will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, nor by horses, nor by horsemen. He's not going to save them by military feat. It's through an act of faith, and it's through literally a miracle, right? The angel of death that is passing over. Okay. So here is chapter 2. Okay, we're in it now, and we're just gonna sort of we're just gonna keep going. It says, plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Right? You can't figure out what he's doing. He's mad, then he's fine, then he's mad. Okay, let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked and set her in that day that she was born, and make her as a wilderness, and set her like a dry land, and slay her with thirst. And I will not have mercy upon her children, for they shall be children of whoredoms. Okay? So it's important to understand, right? Who's really deciding that she's not going to be his husband, right? Is it her, or is it? It's her, of course. It's her. She's deciding to do this, okay? A little reference to, let's see, what do I want to say next? So So yes, okay, I see. So in verse 3, there's a few different ways you can interpret this. That's right, I forgot I had two interpretations. So the first is in Isaiah 3:6. Again, another teaching that is very parallel. When Isaiah predicts he's going to say, no one's going to have any clothes, and the guy who has the nicest clothes, they're going to come up to him and beg him to be our ruler. And he's going to say, what are you talking about? I'm wearing clothes, that's all. Like, that is the qualification. That's how poor these kingdoms are going to be. That the kingdom will be stripped so naked that these people who have clothes are all of a sudden going to be royalty. It doesn't matter what kind of clothes, just that they do. That's the new standard of luxury. Okay, Genesis 3 also sort of makes this comparison of Adam and Eve, who were also naked, and there's sort of like this symbolism of God giving Adam and Eve clothes. And I feel like, to me, it might just because I studied Genesis like 3 weeks ago. But the Lord is saying, this was a gift to Adam and Eve, and he's saying, you're uncomfortable? Take clothes. Let me sacrifice an animal and give you a covering. It's a symbol for Jesus Christ. And he's saying, if you're not going to take it, or if you're not going to use it, I'm going to take it. He's saying, if you're not going to be faithful, you don't deserve my protection. You don't deserve my covering. And they're naked. They're uncomfortable. They're back into that state where they're hiding and using fig leaves, which comparatively to leather is a lot less secure, right? I don't know if you've ever tried dressing in fig leaves, but I don't know, but I guess it wouldn't go well. Okay. For their mother hath played the harlot. She that hath conceived them hath done shamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers that give me bread and water, my wool, my flax, mine oil, and my drink. Therefore, behold, I will hedge the way with thorns, and make a wall that she shall not find her paths. She shall follow after her lovers, but she shall not overtake them. She shall seek them, but shall not find them. Then shall she say, I will go and return to my first husband, being God. For then was it better with me than it is now. So, God, I feel like this first verse is really key. When he's like, she's going all after these other gods. Isaiah's worshiping other gods and saying, oh yeah, they gave me all these things. We had good harvest because of them. A lot of these gods are fertility gods, land gods, who are promising children and promising crop. And so they make sacrifices, and, maybe it happens. Maybe it's all right. It was ball. Of course, right? We made sacrifices, and maybe something happened, so clear correlation, right? It's not really logical. But what is God's response? He punishes them, but he does it in a way that he's hedging up her paths. He's trying so hard to guard her. He's trying so hard to guide her, I should say, and putting her back in the correct paths, because she's not in the right place right now. She's not doing the right things, and she's not going for the right place. Okay. I just wish I had more time. Okay. Here's an excerpt from the Dead Sea Scrolls. They have commentary on Hosea. This is the next verse. For she did not know that I gave her corn and wine and oil and multiplied her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. I gave them gifts, and they gave it right back to idols, okay? This is what the Dead Sea Scrolls had to say. How cool is that, okay? Interpreted, this means that they ate and were filled, but they forgot God who but they forgot God who, and then, translation got messy. This is the next sentence. They cast his commandments behind them, which he had sent by the hand of his servants, the prophets. And they listened to those that led them astray. They revered them, and in their blindness they feared them as though they were gods. And that is in reference to the people who were leading them astray. Okay, they start going after these false sources, and they start trusting them instead of the prophets, because the prophets ask for hard things. But they're taking exactly what they're getting from God, and they push it right back away. And they say, okay, let's give it to other gods, right? Which is not good. Okay, here's another Dead Sea Scrolls commentary, okay? And look up the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're so cool. If I had time to talk about them, I would. We could take a half hour just for that, okay? Therefore will I return and take away my corn in the time thereof, and my wine in the season thereof, and I will recover my wool and my flax given to cover her nakedness. And now I will discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of my hand. Okay. Interpreted, this means that he smote them with hunger and nakedness, that they might be shamed and disgraced in the sight of the nations on which they relied. They will not deliver them from their miseries. Okay, wool and flax is a symbol for God's love and desire for us to be comfortable, just in the same way I was just talking with Adam and Eve. Okay. And so another thing we're going to be talking about is these lovers are also foreign nations who the Israelites are turning to instead of God. Okay, he says that more clearly later. And so, he's going to do something, and in front of these big nations, they're going to gosh, what were they even doing? We thought they were so great, and so it's really just going to be a turning moment that he is prophesying for Israel. Okay. Here's the connection that the Dead Sea Scrolls made. Decided for lovers and the nations on which they relied. They're connecting that idea. They did it thousands of years ago, and they're doing it now. I'm doing it now, okay? Hosea 2:11, I will also cause all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, her Sabbaths, and all her festivals, okay? Interpret this means that they have rejected the ruling of the law and have followed the festivals of the nations. But their rejoicing shall come to an end, and it shall be changed in the morning, okay? Dead Sea Scrolls have to be very strict and very direct. They're not afraid to make enemies because it was a very small Jewish community hiding in caves. And so they believed in just strong interpretation, okay? Here's James 4. I think this provides insight, okay? It says, draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh unto you. Cleanse your hands, ye sinners, and purify your hearts, ye double-minded. Be afflicted and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned to mourning. Does it sound familiar? Okay? And your joy to heaviness. Okay? Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord. He shall lift you up. What are these two ideas connected? It's just that when we fall, when we humble ourselves, when we are stepped down, God lifts us up. This is an idea that is key to the rest of Hosea. Okay, he's not he is punishing them, but it's just not for poops and giggles. He's not just doing this for fun. It's not like God picks on us and flicks us around just to see what happens. He wants to set us straight, and this is his way of doing it. So, the Lord is so just that he can't even do anything mean just for the sake of being mean, and we so easily can, right? And isn't that an awful thing? But it's okay. Okay, moving on. And I will destroy her vines and her fig trees, whereof she hath said, these are my rewards that my lovers hath given me, and I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. And I will visit upon her the days of Baalim, where she burned incense to them. She decked herself with earrings and jewels, and she went after her lovers and forgat me, saith the Lord. And so he's, it's just, she thinks that all these things are from her lovers, and he's just going to pluck them back and say they're mine, and you didn't take them right. She has all these fancy things, and he's going to say, no, this is not right. So just to sort of go back to this other thing, I just sort of want to get at this idea that God is not punishing us. I sort of jumped the gun a little bit. But Israel is being fixed, not punished, okay? They're being fixed, and this is not just for fun, okay? Deuteronomistic, it's the word of the day. It's sort of this ideology, bad things happen to bad people, and good things happen to good people, right? But, even if we're good people and we're trying to be better, bad things still happen to us in order to make us better. Trials purify us, and they cleanse us, okay? From our late prophet, Russell M. Nelson, he says, here's the great news of God's plan. The very things that will make your mortal life the best it can be are exactly the same things that will make life throughout all eternity the best it can be. Okay, so he's connecting these ideas, right? We think celestial, that's the talk it's from. He doesn't say it's gonna make it amazing and you're always gonna have money. He's saying it's the best it can be. Okay, and so that's saying something. If we need to be punished, sometimes that's the best thing that can be happening for me. I think someone's screaming in the background, but or my building's haunted. But so here's another thing. This is from Proverbs 3, and this says, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. Okay, so God is looking to correct us because he loves us, because he wants to make us better. Okay, that's an idea very critical to the book of Hosea. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you're really into this, you'll understand why I put an AI photo of a currant bush. Okay, shout out to Google Gemini. But okay, so we keep going. Okay, therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably to her. Okay, we're on the other side again. Punishment, reward. Punishment, reward. Okay, this is reward. Okay, and I will give her vineyards from hence, the same ones that he just took away, and the valley of Achor for door of hope, and she shall sing there as the days of her youth, as in the day when she came out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be in that day, saith the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi, and shalt no more call me Bali. Thou shalt call me husband instead of master. Okay, for I will take away the names of the Baalim out of her mouth, and they shall be no more remembered by their name. Okay, isn't this beautiful? There's so many verses in this book of Scripture that got to go on wallpaper somewhere. This one alone is just beautiful, but we haven't even gotten anywhere yet. Okay, it's wonderful. Okay, so he's just looking. It's a little bit nostalgic, right? Okay, ish is the word for man. Okay, and then you throw on that e, right, that we just had before, and that means my husband, my man. And so like it's sometimes it feels a little bit awkward to compare the Lord as our husband, but just in the sense that He will be our protector. If you really want to, you can substitute it out for father, as we've known, quite a theoretic, in a literal sense that God is our literally our heavenly Father, but in this sense we compare it to a husband just because that's what Hosea did. And so he's saying, just know me. Don't call me master. Don't follow me because you're afraid of the punishment. Follow me because you love me. Okay, that's what he wants. And he's reminiscing. He says, think back to our days when we worked together in Egypt, when I took you out and you sang praises, and then, it took 5 years, or it took 5 minutes actually, and they started complaining about water, and then, Moses struck it out of a rock, and there's all this drama, and then Moses, it's just such a mess. Everything sort of went to hell after a while. But he's saying, think back to those days when it was good, when you still loved me, just for loving me, and you didn't have much, and I gave you everything, and then you loved it, right? Just think about that, okay? And I love this second part of 17, where it says, not only are the names of the volume going to be taken out of her mouth, they're not even going to be remembered. He says, when we're thinking back to this, in just a few years, once you come back from your exile, it never really happened, but once you come back, he says, you're not even going to be thinking about these idols anymore. He says, this isn't even going to be of concern, okay? And it says, and in that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven and with the creeping things of the ground. And I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth, and will make them to lie down safely. And I will betroth thee unto me forever. Yeah, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness and in judgment and in loving kindness and in mercies. I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. Okay, what kind of know is this? It's a how do I say this? It's an interpersonal no, okay? If we all spoke German in America, perhaps a few problems would be fixed. I speak German, but we have 2 verbs in German that represent the one English verb to know. We have kennen and wissen, okay? If you say, ich weiß, I know something, that is very academic. I know, I don't even know. I know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? But you can't, I really know 2 plus 2 equals 4 well, right? It's just sort of different. We have to work around it in English. But kennen in German, this is kennen. This is kennen. This is to know interpersonally, to love. In the Hebrew language, this know is even it's much more intimate. It's a marital knowing. It's a relationship. It's to love and to respect and to know the flaws of, and to love it anyway. It doesn't matter. Okay. The beginning, verse 18, that's a direct reference to Genesis again. They always refer back to these previous books. When these were written, they knew about Genesis, or they had some sense of these texts. And we know that there's just so many ways. We even know in the Pearl of Great Price, Abraham talks about having the texts of Adam before him, and he knew about the creation. And so, maybe they didn't look exactly like the Torah or the Old Testament does now. But it still works. They still had it. They still had things. They still had an understanding. So this is a direct reference back to Genesis, because they're given charge over the beasts of the field and the fowls of the earth and the creeping things. So he's saying, I'm giving back everything. I'm keeping my promises again. Okay, he's going to break the bow, just like he did before, just like he's promising to do for the southern kingdom soon. And he's going to say, well, I'm going to break the bow because you're not going to need it. It's a beating swords into plowshares sort of breaking bow. It's not like you're going to try and go to battle and I'm going to break your bow. It's that you're not going to need it. That's how great this is going to be. Okay. And so, oh gosh, I love this verse. Okay, just keep with me here. This is awesome. Okay, best part of the presentation right here. Just pay attention for these 10 seconds. Okay. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will hear, saith the Lord. I will hear the heavens, and they shall hear the earth. I'm going to hear you. I'm going to know you. I'm going to listen to you, okay? And the earth shall hear the corn and the wine and the oil, and they shall hear Jezreel, okay? And verse 23, this is the best part, okay? And I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. And I will say unto them which were not my people, thou art my people, and thou shalt say, thou art my God. Okay, this references back to the three things, okay, the three names of the children of Jezreel. I'm going to sow her unto me. I'm going to prepare her, and she's going to return unto me, okay. Mercy, Ruhama, right? Lo Ruhama, no mercy. Now it's just Ruhama. It's just mercy. And then Lo Ami, not my people. We're both, he's going to say to us, you are my people. And we're going to say, you are my God. Okay. What does this remind me of? This reminds me of someone very particularly. Okay. If you're not familiar with the LDS, the Bible videos from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, check them out. This is what this is. Jesus Christ telling his disciples, and he saith unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He's telling them to sow the earth, to prepare it for the return. Okay, modern missionaries in our church, they're given the same charge to go and do this. Okay, this is the woman who had not found mercy. She was a prostitute, and everyone hated her and judged her. And Jesus said, neither do I condemn thee. He extended the hand of mercy. He had mercy upon her that had not obtained mercy. That is exactly what this verse says. Okay? And then the woman with the issue of blood, when Christ comes to her, and I'm sorry, the text is a little bit cut off. I can see that here. When he says, daughter, be of good comfort. He claims her as his. He says, daughter. This is the only time Christ does this in the New Testament. And it's to a woman who's rejected by society. This is another merciful thing. But I like this because he claims her. He says, daughter, he says, don't worry about it. He says, you're mine, and be of good comfort, and understand I still love you, even with all these purity laws. Okay. This is Paul here when he says in Philippians 2:11, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is the Lord, to the glory of the God the Father. This is a wonderful verse. Okay, it's just excellent. So he's saying he's casting up right now. He's saying I will call you my Lord. He's doing it from well, he was all over the place, but he's doing it from the general Middle East area, from sort of like this area, the Israel adjacent sort of thing. And he's fulfilling this prophecy by calling them Lord and gathering these people, and everyone can say I love this phrase. My mother understood this and loved this phrase for me, just from how often it's popped up, and she loves teaching this in seminary classes. This phrase, I will say thou art my people, and they shall say thou art my God. Isn't that just heartfelt? He's saying, all I want is just for you to love me back. He says, don't, I'm just going to spoil this. I require mercy, not sacrifice. It comes up later. He says, I don't need you to do all these things. Unlike your Canaanite gods, I don't want you to kill your children. Stop killing your children for these, please. Right? He says, I want you. I want your hearts. That is exactly what Christ turned us to. He said, I just want you. Just come unto me. And that's exactly what this does. So the story of Hosea continues. And it says, the Lord said unto me, go show your love to your wife again. No, she's loved by another man and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites. So they turned to other gods and loved sacred raisin cakes. So I bought her to me for 15 pieces of silver and a home of barley and a half of barley. And I said unto her, thou shalt abide for me many days. Thou shalt not play the harlot, and thou shalt not be for another man. So will I also be for thee. The New International Version of that is like, I'll do the same thing to you. So I will also be for thee. He's saying, just you be true to me, I'll be true to you. Okay, that's the agreement. That's the covenant we're arranging. Let's start from square one. Okay, come back. So I love this. I love that ChatGPT really did standing down. ChatGPT to just kill her with all these. But I love this one. When Hosea is searching for his wife, he had to go look for her in the streets, and he picks her back up. And so he might be a little bit confused by sacred raisin cakes. If Hosea was preaching this and he was in this heartfelt thing and he was on the verge of tears and he said they love sacred raisin cakes, I'd probably lose it. I'm going to be honest, I'm a laugher, and so I'd probably laugh. But sacred raisin cakes do actually have a meaning. They're used sort of in worship. The Israelites use them too for righteous purposes, but they're sort of this symbol of honoring God. So they're also used for pagan worship and for idol worship. And so this is saying, well, you just love throwing your sacred raisin cakes around everywhere, and giving them to any god who tells you to make sacred raisin cakes. The King James Version uses flagons of wine. This is a translation, so perhaps it's like irresponsibility to getting all drunk and doing whatever, and but it doesn't matter. He says it doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter that they do these things. It doesn't matter that she's an adulteress. It doesn't matter that she loves sacred raisin cakes. Okay, she can love whatever pastry she wants. Okay, just go buy her for 50 pieces of silver. Okay, in Exodus 21, we learn that this is sort of like a law thing. They say if a bull kills someone, kills a slave, pay them 30 shekels of silver. That's the price of a slave. And what was Gomer bought for? 15. She's nothing on the streets. She's gone out and she's figured out what the world is like, and everyone has rejected her. Now she's worth nothing and she has nothing. This is literally like the female prodigal son. Like this is the return. And this time there's no brother. There's no brother who's jealous. It's just pure love. So we keep going. It says, "For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim. Afterward shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in his latter days." Okay? So the first four is just filled with religious symbols. So they're saying, I'm taking away everything, Lord. Like maybe today would be a good comparison. I'm taking away your priesthood. I'm taking away your prophets. I'm taking away your church practices. Okay, you can't do them validly anymore. And then when they have nothing, when they realize, that truly this was the source of their joy and their pleasure and their happiness, right? What's going to happen? They're going to turn back. And that's what they see. They seek the Lord their God. And so there's also this line, David is their king. But David's long gone at this point. I showed you that last slide, right? He's way before. So what does that mean? So David was appointed by the Lord. He's this little guy who defeats some giant, and so he's appointed by the Lord by miracle, and anointed by the prophet to take over for Saul, who's slowly like going down this rabbit hole of sin. And so, being a descendant of David the king and returning into that lineage is sort of like going back to what the Lord asked us to do. In another way, Jesus is also the descendant of David, as we know. So perhaps this is foretelling to the days of Jesus. We just saw that there's loads of, if you're opening your eyes to it, there's lots of references to the Messiah, certainly. And in many cases, it's very clear that we can see as Christians, of course, that the revelations of Messiah naturally match up with Jesus, because he was Messiah. So it's sort of like this dualistic thing. You're going to return back. It's not like they have to wait for Jesus to be righteous, but they're going to return back to righteous ways. Okay. This is Leviticus 18. These are a few different scriptures. So these just throw in some context just to show what this is sort of all about. These are all consequences and sort of the context to adultery. And so Leviticus 18, it says, "Also thou shalt not approach another woman to uncover her nakedness, as long as she put apart for uncleanness," like prostitution. That puts you apart for uncleanness. "Moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife, to defile thyself with her." Any adultery is associated with grossness, with it's defiling, as it is today, rightfully so. But this is exactly what Gomer did. It says in Proverbs 6, "But whoso committeth adultery with a woman lacketh understanding." He just doesn't know what he's doing. "He that doeth it destroyeth his own soul. A wound and a dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away." So Hosea, just by going out and buying her back for 15 pieces of silver, his public image is probably just shattered. He comes to see people are judging him. I bet there was street gossip. They said, "Have you heard what Hosea did? He came back as, his wife did what, and he did what, and, oh goodness." And so, let's just keep going. So Leviticus 20, more things. It says, "And the man that committeth adultery with another man's wife, even he that committeth adultery with his neighbor's wife, and the adulterer and the adulteress shall be put to death." Whether that's spiritual death or literal death, different interpretations. But Deuteronomy 4, this is the important one. "When a man hath taken a wife, married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanliness in her, like prostitution, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand." send her out of his house. He says, kick them out. Deuteronomy says there's no time waiting around. She hasn't done it. Just kick her out. But what does Hosea do? He goes out and he finds her. He does the exact opposite. She kicks herself out and says, I'm unworthy. It is just not worth it for me to go back. And he goes out and he says just the opposite. He says, please come back. He says, I just want you, love. And so this is just, again, in wonderful similitude of our Savior, Jesus Christ. And for all that he does for us, he knows it's going to defile, it's going to defile his public image. But he says it doesn't matter. He says, come back. He says, don't worry about it. I handle the details, and I'm telling you it's going to be fine. I just went to a presentation on Fireside just across the building down yonder. And it was from Hank Smith, and he said this wonderful thing. I love Hank Smith in this way of speaking. And he does this voice he often does with his presentations. I won't try and imitate it for copyright reasons, of course. But he said, do you ever just think of yourself sometimes as a special sinner? Like, oh God, you can heal everyone else, but you just haven't seen me yet. I'm just that good, right? Or a prideful sinner, he called it. And he said, we just got to stop being prideful sinners, because he exactly has seen it. He knows everything about it. He says later, Ephraim, I know you. He says it doesn't matter. And he's absolutely willing to deal with it, so much so that Christ came down on this earth when he didn't have to. And he was crucified. He allowed himself, his life to be handed up, just so that we could be saved, just so we could do this, just so we could return, and just so that we could live with our Father one day. And it's just all contingent about our ability to accept. Okay, here's another little story. It's going to take time, but it's a cool story, okay? It's connecting it historically. This is just something that's going around. So this is sort of historical context at the time, so buckle up. This is so intriguing, okay? So we had this reference to Jehu before, and how we're bringing this upon the head of Jehu. I think the story of Jehu perfectly resembles just exactly what is going on. So this is a photo, again, not AI generated, although like all of these are. Man, do you see these photos, though? They're excellent. Like, I couldn't believe it. I asked it for a Levi priest rejecting someone, and I got the perfect thing. Like, I don't even know. It's wonderful. So here's a photo from the British Museum. I don't want to talk about exactly what this is from yet. Hint, hint. One of the guys in this relief is Jehu, the king of the northern kingdom right now, the king of Israel. So Jehu, let's see, where is he? He's boom. He's I don't have a little laser pointer. Oh, they used to have a laser pointer. So anyway, he's this little bolded guy. I wish you could see maybe you can see my cursor. He's the guy in the bold, and so he's before Uzziah, he's before Hosea, but this is still relevant information about the so yes, this is the same verse from before. So this is the story of Jehu. So I'm just gonna sum it up real quick. Okay, so a servant of Elisha, the same guy who wasn't really a written prophet, the descendant sort of prophetically of Elijah, who we know maybe just a little bit better. He sends a servant to anoint Jehu, and he does it, and Jehu is anointed king over the people, and he's anointed specifically with the charge of destroying the house of Ahab, who's previously in charge, and specifically the servants who, all the things done by Jezebel, who's the wife of this guy. And we're going to learn about Joram here in a second. And so Jezebel is Joram's wife, and nothing good comes from a woman named Jezebel, as is proven in the Bible again and again, right? It's something about the name, I don't know. And so, he comes in, and this is with Ahab's son again, the guy who he was tasked to take out. And so Jehu comes through, and Joram says, have you come in peace? And what are you even talking about? There's no peace. And he says, I'm gonna take you out. And so Joram runs for it, and he calls to his pal Ahaziah, and he says, there's treachery. There's a guy coming to take us out, and he says he's been anointed, and so Jehu just pulls out a bow and kills him. And so, then he goes after Ahaziah because Ahaziah is in it now too, right? So the number one rule of murder is you have to take out the people who have seen you, right? The witnesses. And so he chases down Ahaziah. But wait one second. What did the command say before, right? It said, destroy the house of Ahab, your master. Now he's going after Ahaziah. So he's taken the Lord's request and he's extending it now. And so then then Jehu comes to the palace of Jezebel, and he sees Jezebel, and she calls him names. Zimri as a historical reference to another guy who's doing bad stuff. And so he comes after Jezebel and kills her in a really violent way. And then this line, he ate and drank. He's killing women. He's killing sinners. And then he's sitting back in their chairs and, drinking while he's saying, go throw him off the building, right? Even it says, take care of that cursed woman, he says. It's really strong language. And so then he goes back to the house now of Joram. And his first idea, he says, okay, just send me down the best one of your sons. Choose one of them, and he can come down and battle me in person. And his servants come back, and they say, oh, I don't know about that. And so he says, okay, well, if you want to show me obedience, just kill all of them then. And he says, I don't really care, I suppose. And so they kill them. The servants obey, and it's really crazy. And so Joram has 70 sons, as noted later. They kill all 70 of them. And then, I don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure they cut off all their heads, and it's really violent, and they show them all to Joram, or they show them all to Jehu, just so he knows that they really killed all these guys, just in case it wasn't enough. And so then this verse 11 down here I have underlined. It says, so Jehu killed everyone in Jezreel who remained of the house of Ahab. But I really like this verse, but this bit before it. It says the Lord has done what he announced through his servant Elijah. So I killed everyone. Don't worry about it. It's all inclusive. And it's just not what God asked him to do. He's going way beyond the mark in a very bad and sinister way. So here's the thing about the priest's ball. Jehu goes up and he says, I know Ahaz loved his. I know he loved the priest's ball. I love him more. He says, let's all go into the temple and make sacrifices together. And then they all go in, and as soon as he gets in, he shuts the door and gets the servants to go in and kill him. So now he's not only killed the family, he's come in and he's killed the priests of Baal, who were the servants of our good friend Joram. And then here's in 13 through 14 here on the very bottom of this page, friends of Ahaziah, this guy who wasn't meant to get killed, they show up. And they're like, oh, we're just here to see the royal family. And he realizes that they're relatives of Ahaziah. And so then he goes and kills them too. And it says, holy crap, 42 of them. And he left no survivor. I'm bad with numbers. I forgot that it was all 42. So if we're just adding up the 42 and 70, that's, 112 right now. I don't know of a single person in the history of ever who can kill 112 people and not be held accountable in some regard by the Lord. Because that is just it's not how it works. So Jehu does take Baal out of the worship, but he does not end idolatry. He still has golden calves at these altars, and he's still doing all these things. So it says he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam, which he had caused Israel to commit. And so that, by effect, the Lord begins to reduce the size of Israel. So he takes this command, but he doesn't even do the most important part. He misses it. He just rejoices in bloodshed. So it's just an example of how they're doing all these things. Okay, so here's a relief from the black obelisk. Okay, just guess who Jehu is from this. Okay, I just want you to take a guess. Okay, you might think it's one of these guys on the left, maybe one of the guys on the right. Right, not the sucker on the floor wearing a beanie. Right. Well, would you believe it's actually this guy red on the floor wearing a beanie? I hope you can see my pointer. It's this guy kneeling on the floor, kissing the feet of Shalmaneser III, who's the king of Assyria at the time, and he's paying tributes, and he's it's just an awful thing. So let's compare these two sort of images right here. There's one generated by GPT. It's a falsehood, but maybe exactly what Jehu thought of himself. And then here on the right is reality. Expectation versus reality, right? And so he maybe thought he was all revered, but then when it comes down to the real thing, he's ignoring exactly what's happening, and he has to submit. There's one image of greatness and the other of submission, and he's truly in submission. But he thinks he's this great guy, and he's committing injustices just to try and preserve this image. And then he goes and turns around and tells Israel everything's fine, and then goes around and bends and kisses the feet of these people. And would you believe the Bible doesn't record that that the king of the people is kissing feet? They just don't record that because it's embarrassing, it's humiliating. They take it out of their history. We didn't know about it until this, and then we realized, holy crap, this guy is a suck up. And so, this is pretty rough, but I think this is exactly what's happening. They're doing everything, and they're just acting like it's fine, but it's not fine. And life is not good, but they're acting like it is. Okay, we're going to keep going. This is 4 now, so this represents just the continuing arc of the rest of his teachings, and we're just going to try and fly through it because there's good stuff ahead, don't worry. It says, "Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there's no truth, no mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land." Again, they don't know God. They haven't worshipped him enough to know him, okay? By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, they break out and blood touches blood. Okay, what does that sound like? It sounds like the commandments, that they're finding ways to break almost every one of them. Okay, verse 3, let's take a look at it. It says, "Therefore shall the land mourn, and every one that dwelleth therein shall languish. The beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea shall also be taken away." Okay, you remember what's happened with these 3 items, right? The beasts of the field and the fowls of the earth, right? Given to Adam and Eve, taken away from Israel, given back, they're taken away again, right? And it's not like they're actually going in and out so much, but God is sort of like talking about this anguish, and he's walking us through his grief of, I want to help you, I want to give you these things, I want to give you exactly what Adam and Eve had, made it fair, or make it fair, but I can't. Like, you're making it so hard for me, so I'm going to revoke him. And so that's exactly what this is referring to. It's this covenant between God and Adam. Okay, 6 again. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee. Thou shalt be no priest to me, saying, thou hast forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore I will change their glory into shame. So again, here's this idea, right, where things are going bad. It's gonna be so great interacting with these other nations. And then you're going to realize you're just bending down to their requests, and they don't actually care about you, because you know who does care about you, me, and you're not responding to me, and that being God, of course. And so I love this idea at the beginning. Well, I don't love it. I love it, but you hate it. They're choosing to reject God. That is exactly what's going on. It is not them doing, it's not God doing something. It's them choosing not to follow him and not to care about him. Okay, they forget the law, not just offhand, but they choose to reject it. Okay, I'll do shout out to Don't Miss This. Okay, I love Grace Freeman and David Butler. Fun fact, I did not know until the recording of this video that it wasn't actually Grace Bell Freeman. It didn't occur to me that perhaps Bell is Emily Bell Freeman's maiden name. So it's just Grace Freeman, actually, but David Butler is still David Butler. And so I love the idea that they throw in one of their videos. I was watching this in a Doctrine and Covenants review, and they always, of course, have great insights. But one of their insights, they said, they were comparing the learning of God to tanning. And they said, it's not like we just go out into the sun, with learning. It's not just one consistent source and just whatever happens, right? We choose. It's a tanning bed. We choose how much we want to know of God. If we want to know God, we accept his knowledge. If we don't want to know God, it's not going to work, right? And so we have to, it's line upon line, precept upon precept, right, as we learn. So you have to accept the first basis of understanding to expand upon it. God cannot reveal to us the grandest truths of eternity if we do not first accept the first bits of eternity, right? And so that's a really important concept, right? My summarization of it is you can't learn to multiply if you don't accept addition. it doesn't work if you're not willing to accept that first principle math. Things don't stack up, right? You can't just multiply without adding first. Okay. Here's the decline of the sinner that we learned. It says, "For they shall eat and not have enough; they shall commit whoredom and they shall not increase, because they have left off to take the heed of the Lord. Whoredom and wine and new wine take away the heart." Okay, I want to stop for just 1 second. Okay, I think these maybe more literally are interpretations of what happens to us spiritually when we turn away from God, right? We can take as much as we want, but we're just not going to have enough. It's never enough. In a material world, we're never fulfilled. It's only in a spiritual world that we truly find happiness, and only in seeking the Spirit. So I think this is what that's hinting at. And wine, it's not always going to be new. Sometimes you have to have the crappy wine, and it chips away at your heart. You lose emotion. You lose your joy. Going into verse 12, it says, "My people ask counsel at their stalks, and their staff declareth unto them, the spirit of whoredoms hath caused them to err," right? "And they have gone a whoring from underneath their God." Of course they're erring, right? They're asking dumb things. I added in the New International Version translations, stalks is translated to wooden idols, so back to idolatry again. Things made materially that don't really have eternal consequence. Okay. The staff is translated to divining rod, but now, wait, we might have a conflict here if you know your church history really well, because wasn't Oliver Cowdery using divining rods, right? And I'll tell you, this is not like the biggest church history secret that you're ever going to find. I actually want to talk about this directly. At the time of Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery, there was a culture of using things. Joseph Smith had a seer stone that he famously used. But Oliver Cowdery did have some, staff usage. This one's about Heber J. Grant. It says, "When Heber wanted to find out anything that was his right to know, all he had to do was kneel down with the rod in his hand, and sometimes the Lord would answer his questions before he had time to ask them." And I lied. This one just looks like an AI photo, but it's not. I took this off the church website. I take it back. It's not Gemini. And all of a sudden you're going back and you're going, wait, rod and how's this going? And so this is I think what's really important to know is maybe it's not exactly what's about what they're doing, it's about why they're doing it. It's not bad to whittle little mini figurines of people, right? But it is bad to turn to them instead of God, right? It's maybe not bad to like what Heber J. Grant did. It's not necessarily bad to try and use things to communicate better with God, but that's not what the Israelites were doing. They're doing all these crazy, weird things. I just wanted to go to that because their intents are bad. That's why these things are having to be done, because their intents are bad. Okay, it says, "For Israel slideth back as a backsliding heifer. How can the Lord pasture them like lambs in a meadow?" That section, just that blue section, is New International. Okay, "Ephraim is joined to idols. Let him alone. Their drink is sour. They have committed whoredom continually. Rulers with shame do love." We're back to King James. Okay, and now we're back to New International Version. Okay, "A whirlwind will sweep them away, and their sacrifices will bring them shame." Okay, it's just going to go bad. Okay, backsliding heifer. One note I want to just give my study version of my Bible, good old study version. It provides this reference that backsliding heifer, the Hebrew words that were used for that, they sort of have, it's like a little play on words, because a lot of the syllables, or I don't take Hebrew. That's for later. I get to take those courses later. The word is very similar to the word for Israel, and so he's really making this direct comparison using the Hebrew alphabet, so it's a poetic technique. He was very intentional about this. So backsliding heifer, he's saying you're lazy. How can you be like a lamb, perfect and innocent, if you're a heifer if you're a cow trying to stand on your own 4 feet? I suppose I was going to say 2 feet, but they do have 4 legs. They did back then. They still do now. It's just sort of this comparison, and so we have to be able to prepare ourselves. We can't. I'm trying to think of who said it. I think it was Russell Nelson. He said we can't expect to live celestial lives if we don't live good lives now. If we live celestial lives, we'll live celestial lives forever. If we can't abide by the celestial rule, we cannot live celestial lives, and we cannot strive for the highest glory of glories if we are not willing to live by those rules. So this is sort of like the same thing. If you're gonna be a cow, you're gonna be a cow. You're gonna choose to make those decisions. And so nothing wrong with cows, but in this sense, there's something wrong with cows. So here's this next thing. This is back to New International Version. It says, I know all about Ephraim. What a phrase that is, right? It's great when we're doing well and people misunderstand us. It's awful when we're sinning. They're sinning, okay? He says it right on the bottom. Israel's corrupt. Remember, Ephraim, Israel, same thing, okay? I know all about Ephraim. Israel is not hidden from me. Ephraim, you have now turned to prostitution. Israel is corrupt. Their deeds do not permit them to return to their God. A spirit of prostitution is in their heart. They do not acknowledge the Lord. So he says they just need to acknowledge him. That is all he's asking, okay? And so here's another line. Again, just stunning work by Gemini, okay? When Ephraim saw his sickness and Judah his sores, then Ephraim turned to Assyria and sent to the great king for help. And you might, when you're reading this, I swear I remember this from King James Version, they use a specific name for the great king. This term great king, it's just a Hebrew translation that they chose to translate as a name in the King Version. So don't be mistaken. It's the great king, right? Okay, so but he turned to the great king for help. Okay, he is not able to cure you, not able to heal your sores. For I will be like a lion to Ephraim, like a great lion to Judah. I will tear them to pieces and go away. I will carry them off, and with no one to rescue them. In their misery, they will earnestly seek me. Okay, oh, it's just beautiful. So he's taking them away. It's just for a moment. For a moment, I have forsaken thee. Okay, but just come back. Okay, and that's what's going to happen. You're just going to realize how much you need me. Okay, but this is exactly the point I'm making before. Okay, they're turning to other nations. They're turning to idolatrous things. Okay, the Lord is very upset about their political affiliations and what they're doing with their time. Okay, here's what happens right after. Okay, it's wonderful. Okay, come, let us rejoice to the Lord. He has torn us to pieces, but he will hear us. He has injured us, but he will bind up our wounds. Okay, just let this sink in. Let this sink in. Okay, after 2 days he will revive us. On the third day he will restore us, that we may live in his presence. Let us acknowledge the Lord. Let us press on to acknowledge him. As surely as the sun rises, he will appear. He'll come to us like the winter rains, like the spring rains, the water, the earth. Okay, it's just beautiful. Again, someone make a poster out of this. If you make me a t-shirt, I'll pay you money for it. Okay, the Lord is going to tear us to pieces. Remember the lion, right? But don't forget, he's also going to heal us. Okay, we skip to the bottom because the fire section in verse 2. Okay, the winter rains. It's very important to understand that in the Levant, in this area, even now, all throughout the winter, it rains nonstop. You can ask anyone. It is just, you never see the sun ever. It's always clouds. And so, maybe a bad thing to Western culture, but to them where it's very dry normally, the winter rains are constant and necessity. So he's going to come to us like winter rains. He's going to be constant. He's going to be nourishing. He's going to give us exactly what we need, something that we can rely on. Okay, it's so much. These are all loaded. If you could go into any one of these verses and tear it apart and just find so many things. It's why I love Hosea, because he thought so much about every metaphor. Okay, verse 2. Okay, does it make you think of anything? Can he literally throw it at us any further? Okay, it's incredible. You probably couldn't, as a Jew at the time, understand what this meant. Truly, it's okay, second day, third day. Okay, but what does this represent to us as Christians? Okay, I stole this actually. Love you, Brother Hilton. He probably will be watching this video. I stole this from your website, and now I'm using it because it's a wonderful photo. This comparison of Christ at Gethsemane versus Christ on the cross. Okay, and really they illustrate the same principles. Okay, it says again. This refers to this. After 2 days, he will revive us. Okay, on the third day, he will restore us. Okay, what does this point to? On the third day, he will restore us. So our restoration happens on the third day. What happens on the third day? The resurrection. Or restoration, the resurrection, they're linked. Okay? So at the time when they still observed animal sacrifices for the law of Moses, and that was what God's decree was. Okay, this didn't mean too much for them, but as modern day Christians, this means everything to us. I was talking with my roommate. He was making fun of me for how I had 93 slides. He kept saying, and 93 slides later, you're at the end. And I told him, I don't understand. I said, they're talking about Jesus Christ in the Old Testament. I said, there's reference to the timetables in which Christ was like restored. Are you serious? Like, just tell me this is not the most exciting thing to happen ever in your lives, period. And this is why the Old Testament's great, and everyone needs to study it. And specifically Hosea. I've ran into too many people who don't study Hosea. This is too much. It's too awesome. It's too great, too cool. Okay, understand what this means for us. He's telling us right now. He's saying, even though, I mean, this doesn't apply maybe too much to us because it's not like he's saying America will fall. But we have personal times where we are forsaken because of our sin, and the Lord has to just hit this reset button. But when does restoration happen? It happens at the time of the resurrection, which for us has already happened. Our restoration is here in the present day. It is now, and that's all. It's we can leave this in the past. That's really what we can do. That's what he's saying here. Okay, there's two other key ideas I want to touch. Okay, first in verse 4, and I don't list chapters here. I apologize, but if you follow along, these are in order mostly. He's saying, Ephraim, Israel, and Judah, actually, both the northern and southern kingdoms. What can he do? Because just as the morning mist by noonday, it's disappeared. Right? Just the same thing happens with their faith. How does this apply to us? How often do we? I know I for sure have moments all the time. I'm doing great 1 second and spiritually on fire, and 10 seconds later I forgot what happened. The most meaningful prayer of my life offered at 1:30, and then I'm asleep. Right. And then the second thing, I quoted already, I gave up my lead. But he says, for I desire mercy, not sacrifice, acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. So he's saying, he told Hosea, I don't want you to kill your children. I don't want that. I just want you to take back your wife. Like restore, don't take away, So sacrifice is still, I don't want you to misinterpret how I'm trying to interpret the scripture. Sacrifice is worthy. We need to sacrifice. We have tithing. We have, we have things we have to sacrifice. Being mean to people when we run into people we don't like, which is often in this world, right? So there are things we have to sacrifice. That's a valuable thing, and we can learn much from the Jewish tradition of sacrifice. But that is not. We cannot just sacrifice. We need to love too. Okay. This is the first verse of the next thing, and this is I'm trying to stack it through together. We're still 20 slides from the end. Bear with me. It still gets good, okay? When I would have healed Israel, then the iniquity of Ephraim was discovered, and the wickedness of Samaria. Okay, so he's trying to heal, but, every time he does, there's just more that pops up. He's trying so hard. And as Elder Patrick Kieran taught us, God is in relentless pursuit of you. He wants to heal, and oftentimes we just... It's too much. We go back, but that's what we have the atonement for. That's why we are restored on the third day, because it's just more and more. Okay. I want to talk again about this political concept. It says, "And their kings fall," and this is referring to the Israelite kings who are turning to these other kings. It says, "And their kings fall, and none of them calls on me. Ephraim mixes with the nations. Foreigners sap his strength, but he does not realize it. His hair is sprinkled with gray, but he does not notice. He's coming to the end." It's just about the time where he's done for. Okay, Israel's arrogance testifies against him, but despite all this, he does not return to the Lord his God or search for him. Okay, that is where the source is. He's saying, just look back. That's all you need. This is the bronze serpent on the pole, and he's saying, just turn around. Just do what Hezekiah did. You don't even need good armies, good soldiers. In 1 Samuel, this is just a little off tangent. In 1 Samuel, there's this plea. They say, "Give us a king just like unto all the other nations." I can't remember the exact reference. It's such a heartbreaking story when Israel turns from prophets as rulers to kings, and they say, they say she's going to do so many bad things, and Samuel tries to warn them, but they don't want it. So he appoints Saul, who the Lord guides him, and Saul's a bad person eventually who tries to kill David, who's actually the Lord's appointed, and so much Old Testament drama that comes as a result of taking a king as a leader. And he's saying, that the kings fall, but what king does not fall, right? All the mortal kings fall, right? So what's the solution? Find an immortal king. Well, thank goodness one is begging for you to just take him. It would be very easy, right? It still is for us. Okay. Here's the next bit. It says, Ephraim is like a dove, easily deceived and senseless, now calling to Egypt, now turning to Assyria, right? He can't stop. And it's just senseless and endless. It doesn't matter, okay? It's constant, okay? Here's, again, ChatGPT. This is the same photo from before, just because this reminds me of the search of Hosea. It says, I long to redeem them, but they speak about me falsely. They don't even know about him enough to talk about him right. It's their God. It's the God of the Israelites, isn't it? Well, maybe not as much as we think right now. Okay, they do not cry out to me from their hearts, but they wail on their beds. They slash themselves, appealing to gods for grain and new wine, but they turn away from me. Okay, again, just beautiful verse. Just my thoughts on 14. I think of times where maybe like just this concept of during the day versus the night. It's there comes a time at night where we can do no more work, and this is sort of the concept. They've worked the day in unrighteousness, and they don't cry out to them in their hearts when they're walking, when they're actually acting. But then it comes to the evening, and all of a sudden they get serious. They're like, oh, I really screwed it up, right? This big time. And so they turn away, and they look to their new gods for sustenance, for grain and for wine, which is basic ingredients for life. And so and so then this other idea, they slash themselves. It's so bad that they're cutting themselves for their gods. They're injuring their sacred bodies, which have been gifts from God, created by God, and instructed and used by God. And they've just they've just taken the wrong thing. Okay, here again, you can tell when I really gave up in my formatting. I just started throwing text on page. So it says, Israel shall cry unto me, my God, we know thee. Israel hath cast off the thing that is good, the enemy shall pursue him. They have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. Thy calf, O Samaria, hath cast thee off. Mine anger is kindled against thee, or against them. How long will it be ere they attain to innocency? That means how long will they be incapable of impurity? That's the New International Translation. Okay, for from Israel was it also. The workman hath made it. Therefore it is not of God. But the calf of Samaria shall be broken in pieces. Okay, a reference back to the golden calves that they made in Israel. Okay, I think someone's getting like an exorcism outside in the hallway again. I hope maybe you can't hear the miscellaneous exorcism noises in the back of my microphone, but it's pretty common for 10 o'clock in building 15 for me. So they set up kings. They don't ask God. They just do what they want. They're trying to be mighty, but again, remember that map? It's not looking good. Mesopotamia and Egypt, being caught in the middle is death. It's death. They're not meant to. He's saying, don't be like the other nations. Don't be like them. Be unique. Okay, trust in me, and we'll make this work. How many times does he make that call? How many times have I said that in the last hour and a half now? It's like, how many times does he just say, trust in me? That's all you need. I don't need you to have any crazy things. You don't need to have the world's greatest material possession. Trust in me. Okay. They've sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Okay, you're gonna get exactly what you sow. This is the law of the harvest. Okay, if you're trying to get nothing, you're gonna get nothing. Okay, if no stalk, the bud shall yield no meal. If so, it shall be yelled. Then the strangers shall swallow it up. Okay, they don't even get it. Israel is swallowed up. Now they shall be among the Gentiles as a vessel, wherein is no pleasure. In the New International Translation, they say they're going to be among the Gentiles like something that is not even wanted, it says. For they are gone up into Assyria. Oh, language warning, I won't say that. A wild donkey alone by himself. Ephraim hath hired lovers. I thought maybe before this lesson I'd go for it, but I'm not feeling the courage. We started talking about Jesus, and I, just got too persuaded. So, but they're going to Assyria. They're going to Israel, to Egypt, and they're not trusting in God. So it's these chapters are really the same thing. Okay, I'm just gonna move past this. Okay, now really, Gemini outdid itself with this one. I love this photo. I asked for a Jewish father helping his son, and this is what I got. I wasn't thinking modern day Judaism, but it works. This is chapter 11 that I love so much, and I do just want to make this under 2 hours. So I'm going to be generous with your time. So I'm going to try and make this quick. This is beautiful. You need to read every section, every inch of Hosea. I'm going to read most of 11 for you. I'm not going to have too much time to talk about until after. But it says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called him my son. But the more they were called, the more they went away from me. They sacrificed to the Baals, and they burned incense to images. It was I who taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by the arms, but they did not realize it was I who led them. I led them with cords of human kindness, with ties of love. To them I was like one who lifts a little child to the cheeks, and I bent down to feed them. Will they not return to Egypt, and will not Assyria rule over them because they refuse to repent? A sword will flash in their cities and will devour the false prophets and put an end to their plans. My people are determined to turn away from me, even though they call me Most High. They call me God Most High. I will by no means exalt them. How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I hand you over, Israel? How can I teach you like Admah? How can I make you like Zeboim? My heart is charged within me. All my compassion is aroused. I will not carry out my fierce anger, nor will I devastate Ephraim again. Okay, one note on this. I do want to say Admah and Zeboim are two cities that are well within vicinity of Sodom and Gomorrah. So in the biblical story, when Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed by an act of God, Admah and Zeboim are also upturned. They're also destroyed. So he's saying, how can I treat you like that? How can I do that? You're my child. And this is the reason, okay? For I am God and not a man. I love the translation of this in some of the other translations. They say, for I am God and not a mere mortal. It still has the same effect, but those ones are just a little bit more fun. This is the Holy One among you. I will not come against their cities. They will follow the Lord. He will roar like a lion. When he roars, his children will come trembling from the west. They will come from Egypt, trembling like sparrows, from Assyria, fluttering like doves. I will settle them in their homes, declares the Lord. Okay, that's the end of chapter 11. Okay, I know there's 3 more chapters to go. I promise I made it short. We're really close to the end. Okay, can't you just see why I love this story? This is like, it's just narration of exactly the principles we've been learning together over the last 10 chapters, and here it bottles it up. What I love most is, of course, well, when he's nice. I like it when God is nice. But I love it when he starts talking about why he's going to do this. And the Bible Project videos talks about this too, and I love it. So in verse 4, it says that it's because of his human kindness. I see what point I was making here too. So it's because of his kindness, but he also says human kindness in here, and that's included in this translation. And so it's saying that he's bending down to us. It's not that he is only doing the things. He could be kind in the regard that he just prepares eternal salvation for us. And he doesn't give us any mortal reward of any sort. That's kind. That's very kind. That's sufficient, okay? But he's saying he's giving us human kindness too. He's bending down to feed us, like it says here in this verse. And so it really shows just the, do you know the condescension of God, as Nephi is asked, when he has shown Christ coming down and suffering for our sins. And so, I think of again, Adam and Eve giving clothes. Their fears of being naked weren't really valid in the perspective of God. But yet they were still given clothes. He still said, I want you to be comfortable. It didn't matter. Okay? Okay, so let's keep going though. But why he does this? He says, my heart has changed within me, and all my compassion is aroused. He says, how can I give you up? How can I hand you over? And he says, ultimately, because I'm above you. His ways are not our ways. My thoughts are not your thoughts, right? He says. And so he's saying, I'm better above this. I'm more compassionate. I'm more loving. And I love you so much. That is why he does it, because he loves us. And isn't that a wonderful, among all the stories in the Old Testament, where we learn of a God of judgment? This is just beautiful. Okay. So it says here, now they sin more and more, but I've been the Lord your God ever since you came out of Egypt. Isn't that, it's just, again, so beautiful. It doesn't matter that we sin. He still claims us as his, in exactly the same way as he did when the Israelites were in Egypt. Okay. It's just the exact same thing. Okay, so we're sort of coming to a close now. I just wanted to close out with one last thing. So there's 4 symbols that I sort of want to talk about. There's, of course, first, idolatry. I didn't talk about the application. This is the application. And it just turned 10:37, so I really gotta, I gotta hurry up here and get myself to bed. But there's idolatry, which represents, of course, turning away from the Lord, forsaking him, and because we think we can find things better in other places. This is ideologies in our day that don't ally with God, and they don't. There's things. The best way, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. The best way I like to think of it is we all make sacrifices in our lives. To what do we make sacrifices? Where are we putting our time? Where are we spending our energy? Where are we placing money? Is that in God? Because this concept of marriage means that we need to be all in. Marriages don't work when it's a 90-10, relationship, and often that's what it is with God. He's that generous. But let's seek to make it almost more 50-50. We probably can't do that with God. He's too generous, and he has too much to offer us, and he's too kind. We give him one little thing, and he extends it tenfold in blessing. But it's just about love. It's just about returning to him. Okay, there's kings. I think these are more the ideologies. These are what we let lead our lives. And how we choose to live them. Are we choosing kings? Are we choosing ideologies that align with the Lord, that he's instructing us? When we receive revelation, are we making sure to act on that? Okay, these are all things that Hosea is talking about, both metaphorically as he's also instructing Israel literally. Okay, there's 4 nations which are outside influences that are poor. They lead us out. We bend before them, and unlike the Lord, we throw things in them, and they don't reward us fully. I think foreign nations can be secular things that in themselves are good, but as we use them to forsake the Lord, can become bad. I play the violin, but if I start playing violin all day and I stop going to church and I don't read my scriptures, that's a very classical thing. But if I stop doing those things, then it becomes bad. Then if I choose to let the violin take precedence over my own life and my own living, then I'm doing that thing that they were talking about, where I'm slashing myself, I'm cutting my body, I'm modifying myself for the gods, for these ideologies, for violin. It can be very plentiful for me. It has. I've seen a wealth of blessings as God has magnified my efforts. But alone, without God, it does not do that. Secular efforts in secularness alone do not bring blessings. Okay, those are foreign nations. Okay, then there's the restoration of Israel, and I love this because it has 2 parts. Okay, the pain of it all, and then the restoration, the blessing. How many times do we see this in our own lives? Pain, the trial, then blessing. I love my mother uses this phrase often, and I think it's very applicable here. She tells me in reference to acne, she says, "Sam, the pimple's always better popped. It doesn't matter what it is." And I think she uses that in terms of aesthetics. I love you, Mom. Thank you for your advice. But she says it's always better popped. It doesn't matter. Just get it out there, right? It's better to have pimp popples on your face than unpop stuff. And so, in some regard, that's the same with our spiritual conduct. And how are we turning to sin, and how do we treat sin in our lives? Are we trying truly to get it out? Because oftentimes that's a painful experience. And as I was told in an FSY devotional, they said, just make no mistake, it is not repentance, it is not the atonement that brings pain, it is the sin, and it is pulling that out that causes pain. And really, we have to go through that in order to understand really how grateful we are for the atonement. So there's working for it. There's the work. We're always working through things. We're always working to be better. And then there's the rejoicing. And we can sort of overlap this as we get further and further in. It seems like Israel, who's so far in, it is pretty separate. It was do this and then get this. But as we, seek to sort of propel ourselves on and use Christ's atonement to do that, I think those align. We get better at things, and the joy comes. We get better at more things, and the joy comes. And so I think it doesn't have to be so segmented, but surely there is blessing in these things. Okay. Again, just the thing, that the thought that Israel isn't meant to be, they're not meant to be a military nation. We're also not meant to be, not military people literally. But we don't need to be great. We just need to rely on God. And I think that lesson is so prominent in Hosea. Okay, would you believe we're on one of the very last slides. Okay, so this is the last verse of the last chapter of Hosea. It's verse 14, chapter 14. And let's see, verse number 9. And so the Bible videos, they suggest that perhaps this is an added annotation by a scribe or someone who arranged it. The Bible was arranged in various amounts of ways. And so this is the phrase that they choose to end it with. This is exactly how I will end this too. It says, who is wise? Let him realize these things. Who's discerning? Let him understand. The ways of the Lord are right. The righteous walk in them, but the rebellious stumble in them. Okay? What a beautiful way to end it all. Oh my goodness. It's divinely inspired, the Bible is. So, of course it's beautiful. And another wonderful AI photo on the side. But this is the lesson they want you to understand. They want you to see that righteousness is what brings happiness. It is not idolatry. It is not material wealth. It is not possession. It's not any of these things. Exactly what it is clear. It is righteousness. We learn that. It's turning to Christ. It's being restored on the third day with him, and also taking up our cross with him. And, even if it's hard, turning to the righteous things, that's what Israel struggled so hard with, was not being truthful, even when things get hard, and not turning to God when things get hard. So I'm so thankful for the book of Hosea. Again, I'll just reaffirm my promise. Go through, read everything. It's only 14 chapters. If we could get Isaiah in 14 chapters, that would be a happy, happy day for everyone. But that's not possible. But it is with Hosea. Watch videos, hear other people's insights. These are my insights. I tend to walk through the text very, incrementally. But listen to other people's insights. There's great other videos out there. And read the different translations, look through it, and you will understand the Old Testament, how to better follow Christ. And his example is very evident in all of these. So I'm so thankful to that. I'm thankful for the church. I'm thankful for the reorganization of these things. I'm thankful for the understanding that we have now today, and for how God has blessed us. We are in the manifestation of these blessings today, and we see them now here with us, and we see how beautifully they play out. So I'm thankful for those things. I'm thankful for the God of Israel who forgives, and the God who redeems and who searches us out, and for 15 pieces of silver, when the world esteems us for nothing, how he will pick us back up. These stories are just about us as much as they were about Hosea's life. And the lessons on forgiveness are profound too. So I hope you'll look through, and I hope you'll search more. But I bear my testimony on all of these things in the sacred name of Jesus Christ. Amen.